Do you think being likable is something you're born with or something you learn over time? Well, what if I told you it's neither? Being likable today isn't about who you truly are, it's about how much you're willing to bend, how often you stay quiet, how carefully you hide your real opinions, your way of seeing the world, your actual desires. And that raises a very strange question. Why do creators and actors today feel closer than ever, constantly present through social media, yet seem more distant from us at the same time? Why do they avoid the obvious, speak in rehearsed language, and hide what they really think? Is it money? Is it fame? Power? Or is the harsher reality this? That in order to survive in public today, you're expected to water yourself down until there's nothing left to disagree with. Because the truth is, being yourself is costly, and the price is accepting it that not everyone will like you. Now, trying to be likable is not a weakness, it's literally encoded in our DNA. We are a community driven species. We survive and thrive off of people liking us. But trying to be liked by everyone is not only paradoxical and weak, it's also the purest form of character suicide, your death of personality. Since if you stand for everything, you don't really matter for anything. And nowhere is this more visible today than in creative careers that depend on public approval. You see, for a long time, actors and creators of all kinds have faced a dilemma, one that social media has only made harder to escape. They are expected to fight on all fronts, or none at all. There was a time when a creative could simply be that, a creative. And for most of us, that wasn't only enough, that was the point. We didn't need actors or creators to be political if they never were to begin with. We didn't need them to be moral references if they were just doing their job. And most importantly, they didn't have to be anything that they didn't want to be. But we don't live in that world anymore. Today, silence is treated as a statement, and speaking up is treated as a liability. A loud minority has turned constant outrage into a performance, one that feeds on contradiction and punishes consistency. There's no safe direction to move in, no position that protects you. Say something and you'll be attacked. Say nothing and you'll be attacked anyway. It becomes a double-edged sword where every choice cuts you, and sooner or later that pressure doesn't just damage careers, it kills them. Creators today tend to fall into one of two categories. Those who start by being themselves, showing their personality and way of thinking through their work. And those who do the same, but eventually grow too large to remain untouched and are slowly sanitized into something safer, the latter being the most common. Both creators and actors are now expected to constantly engage with audiences, either through their work or by endlessly promoting it. And in theory, promotion should be the moment where we get to see who they really are, where personality slips through the cracks. That's why it feels like a breath of fresh air when it actually happens, when someone speaks honestly about their own work, without rehearsed gratitude or corporate polish. Harrison Ford stands out as a perfect example for me. He played one of the most lovable and iconic sci-fi characters in modern cinema, and when he's asked about it, he often dismisses it outright or even mocks it, to the point where it's become endearing, almost inseparable from his public persona.
Hey Adam, what's your question?
It's for Harrison Ford. Is your life goal to reboot every major franchise you helped to create?
You bet your ass it is.
And it's not really because he's bitter or ungrateful or playing a role of a grumpy old man. It's because we're hearing his actual thoughts. There's more value in that honesty than in any perfectly curated line written by any publicist. What makes this contrast even more striking is how differently honesty is treated depending on where you sit in the system. You see, fame is sort of a spectrum. A creator starting out is often rewarded for personality or for quality, for being raw, opinionated, distinct.
My people? What do you mean my people? Black people? What the fuck do you think I'm saying?
That's what cuts through the noise. That's what builds an audience in the first place. But once that audience becomes large enough, the incentives change, the paradox is created. Suddenly, the same traits that build their success become liabilities. Opinions become risk, personality becomes unpredictable, and authenticity is slowly replaced with neutrality. And not because creators want to lie or not say things, but because the cost of saying the wrong thing becomes too high. You can see this clearly with creators who grow into brands. MrBeast didn't become the biggest creator on the platform by accident. His content is engineered to be frictionless, borderless, inoffensive. It doesn't challenge, confront, or divide. And that's not really a criticism from me. It's just a requirement at that scale. His style of content began as the quirky variety type and then slowly morphed into the $1 billion challenge. A model that is obviously not sustainable in the end, by the way, but that's something else. He works with big companies to make even bigger videos, giving away big amounts of money, bringing in huge celebrities, a huge new show, and a lot more. But you see, the main problem he ran into is that the bigger the audience, the less room there is for perspective. What starts as personality driven slowly becomes audience managed content. Not because creators lose themselves, but because the system stops allowing them to show who they really are.
No one, like, people would have bet $1 million that I wouldn't be a YouTuber. You know, it makes no sense.
Not because they can't, but because they don't get rewarded. You stop being a persona and become a product. And this is where the conversation stops being about individuals and starts being about systems. Systems that transform anything into products. Because creators and actors aren't just performing for the audiences anymore. They're performing for platforms, for advertisers, for sponsors, for algorithms that quietly reward safety and punish friction. Algorithms don't really understand nuance, sponsors don't tolerate controversy, and platforms don't want unpredictability. Often enough, you'll see somebody stand out for being a little too broad, a little too direct, for being a little too politically incorrect or whatever it is, for calling it as it is. And then slowly, once they get the deals, the money in, they start changing. So what gets promoted isn't what's honest, it's what's safe. This creates a subtle but powerful form of pressure. You don't get banned for having an opinion. You just get quietly buried. Less reach, fewer opportunities, fewer deals, no explanation. And over time, creators learn the lesson. Not because they're weak, not because they're dishonest, but because survival demands adaptation. And once the system knows you are adaptable, then you get the money from all sides. Companies, sponsorships, everything is contingent on you being micromanageable. When your income, visibility, and career stability depend on being broadly acceptable, the easiest path forward is just self-censorship. Not dramatic silence, just small, careful omissions. Softer language, safer positions, neutrality disguised as maturity, until eventually there's nothing left to disagree with. And that is the harsh reality of trying to please everyone. You don't lose your audience overnight. You don't get canceled. You don't even fail sometimes. Sometimes you win everything you ever wanted. But then something a little more melancholic happens. Strange. That gap of who you felt was missing and was gonna be covered by this, not only does it get bigger, it gets louder. You stop recognizing who you are, and you start to forget more and more why you started in the first place, why you were different. And that's the reality we face as human beings and what we try to be liked by everyone we meet. You slowly disappear because in trying to be liked by everyone, you stopped being someone at all.